All this drama in Pakistan makes you forget there is a war that's on in Europe. This is day 35 of Russia's invasion. After all the airstrikes, all the destruction, there's finally some hope. More talks were held on Tuesday. Officials from Ukraine and Russia met in Turkey. The Ukrainian side came with concessions. Number one, neutrality. Ukraine promised to abandon its NATO bid. They will not go after the membership after all. Number two, non-nuclear status. Ukraine will never try to build a nuclear bomb, they said. Number three, no military designs over Crimea. In other words, acceptance of the 2014 annexation of Russia. And number four, a future discussion on the status of Donbass. So 4 major concessions. Were they enough though? Frankly, it's too early to say, but both sides were upbeat after the talks. Listen to their assessments.
Yes, we can call the signals we hear from the negotiating platform positive. But these signals do not drown out the blows of Russian shells. Of course, we see all the risks.
In order to increase mutual trust and create the necessary conditions for further negotiations and achieving the ultimate goal of agreeing and signing the above-mentioned treaty, made a decision to radically, by a large margin, reduce military activity in the Kiev and Chernihiv directions.
Important signals from both sides here. Ukraine says that talks were positive. Russia says they're scaling down operations in the north. Fine statements. But do they trust each other? So far, there are no signs of a climb down by Russia. In fact, the city of Chernihiv was bombed overnight. Libraries and shopping malls were hit. And these attacks trigger a trust deficit, if there wasn't already one. This trust deficit could derail the talks. And you can't blame Ukraine for that. They're on the back foot here. They are the ones making concessions. So naturally, they're suspicious of Russia's intentions. Which brings us to Ukraine's demand. What do they want from these talks? They want security guarantees. Ukraine wants world powers to guarantee its safety. Make sure that something like this never happens to them again. But here's a question. Who can give this guarantee? The US, Europe, Israel, Turkey, all these countries are candidates. But not all of them trust Russia. The US, for instance, they feel Vladimir Putin is not even looking for peace.
And what I've not seen anything that suggests that this is moving forward in an effective way, because Russia, at least we've not seen signs of real seriousness. But if Ukraine concludes that there is, that's good, and we support that.
So the offers are on the table, what Ukraine wants and what Ukraine is willing to give up. Now the ball is in Vladimir Putin's court. What will he decide? 2 things will determine Vladimir Putin's response. Number one, the future of Donbass, and number 2, Western sanctions. We'll talk about Donbass first. Putin justified this whole invasion using Donbass, remember. First, he recognized the 2 breakaway republics, Donetsk and Luhansk. And then he talked about liberating Donbass. So clearly, eastern Ukraine is Putin's prize. And what is Zelensky's plan for eastern Ukraine? A pre-war status quo. Sort of like a Minsk III. Now, this proposal is a risky one for Putin. And this map should tell you why. All of Russia's gains have been made in the east. The land bridge from Crimea to Donbass is nearly complete. Will Putin simply abandon these territories? Chances are he won't. Will he hand them over to the rebel republics? Well, this is where things get even more interesting. Donetsk and Luhansk are not interested in independence. Turns out they want to join Russia.
At this moment, we follow the line that Donetsk People's Republic is recognized as an independent sovereign state. As for joining the Russian Federation, as for the wish and aspiration, they have been clearly stated since 2014, the desire to be part of Russia.
Well, is this even possible? Both regions are considering referendum, sort of like a public stamp of approval for joining Russia. Remember, the same thing was done in Crimea back in 2014, a sham referendum, but this time Putin has more options. A, he can carve out an eastern Ukraine like a buffer state, or B, he can outright annex them. And both moves would violate international law, which means more sanctions will follow. And that is point number 2. Putin needs those Western sanctions lifted. He needs to rejoin the global economy. The problem is Ukraine cannot offer that. They cannot guarantee the lifting of sanctions. Only the US and its allies can, because they're the ones who put these sanctions in the first place. And this could be a big challenge for Volodymyr Zelensky. he must sell any peace deal to two groups. One, his own people, because they have fought fearlessly, they've sacrificed so much. Will they accept these humiliating concessions? And two, the West. And that's where the problem lies. Joe Biden doesn't mind if this war goes on. His soldiers are safe after all. Yet Russia is suffering losses every day. That works for the US. These next couple of days could be crucial in the talks. It's all about making tough choices. For Putin, does he continue this high-cost war, or does he strike a favorable deal with Ukraine? For Zelensky, does he make more concessions, or is this as far as he will go? Perhaps a direct sit-down between Putin and Zelensky will do the trick. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.